this is Steve Hewlett from balancedfitlifestyles.com, and today we're going to talk about how much sugar is too much. Now, in previous videos, I've explained exactly what sugar is and what sugar does to your body. And then in another video, I kind of gave an analogy from Dr. Jason Fung about what prediabetes is, insulin resistance, and full-blown type 2 diabetes, and the causes of all this. And again, the cause of this is too much sugar, too much high fructose corn syrup, too much processed food, and too much flour in our diets. And as I talked about in another video, remember there are 9 essential amino acids that you have to get from the outside. Our bodies don't make them. And amino acids, those are the building blocks of protein. And there's also 2 essential fatty acids that we have to get from the outside because our bodies don't make those. And these fatty acids, those are the building blocks of fat. However, there's no such thing as an essential carb. Our bodies can make all the sugar that it needs from excess protein, excess fat. And so really, we don't need sugar at all, really. So let's see what we actually do. And again, this is Paracelsus. He was the father of toxicology back in the early 1500s. And even back in the early 1500s, Paracelsus said that the dose makes the poison. So a little bit of sugar is fine, but a lot of sugar is not fine. And this is kind of to explain what I'm talking about here is in our bodies, say we're a normal 70-kilo person, and in our bodies, we have floating around our bloodstream, we have the equivalent of about 1 teaspoonful of sugar floating around our bloodstream at any one time, okay? 1 teaspoon of sugar. Now compare that to 10 teaspoons of sugar that's in 1 can of soda pop. Now, if that's all you're going to have is 1 can of soda pop and you're going to eat perfectly healthy the rest of the time, that's perfectly fine because there's enough sugar in here, there's enough subcutaneous fat cells that our body can use it. When you put this glucose into our bodies, we can either use it for energy needed then, or we can store it as glycogen for energy to be used later, or we can convert it into fat to be put in our subcutaneous fat cells, and this is the energy that we'll use during those times that we're not eating, so our fasting periods. And whether you fast for 2 hours or whether you fast for 2 days, when you're not eating, our body should be using the stored fat that's in our subcutaneous fat cells. So if that's all you had is this 1 can of pop and you ate perfectly healthy the rest of the time, that'd be perfectly fine. But that's not what we do. We eat sugar in almost every single thing that we eat. We eat sugar. It's in all of our sugar-sweetened beverages, all of our soda pops, all of our fruit juices. It doesn't matter how healthy they say, or if they say this is all natural fruit juice, it's too much sugar and you don't need it. If you want fruit, eat the fruit. That's much better than the fruit juice. You're going to get a lot less in because you can't eat as much, and you're going to get the healthy fiber and the healthy phytonutrients along with it. So you won't eat as much. When you eat it like you do in sugar-sweetened beverages, you're getting a huge glucose load. So stay away from all your sugar-sweetened beverages. It's also in any bags. It's in our crackers, our potato chips, anything in a bag. Anything with a label on it, you're going to probably want to stay away from it because chances are there's going to be high fructose corn syrup or sugar in there. And I've explained that in another video that I made talking about processed food, why we have processed food and what exactly processed food is. But basically, if it's a man-made food, you might want to stay away from it. Only eat God-made food. That food, if it was never alive to begin with, we might not want to put that in our mouths. The other thing, we have it in all our boxes. It's in anything with a label on it. And so this is what we do with our children. We sit here and we give them all this sugar out of these boxes, and then we give them fruit juices to take home. And so we're just filling our children up with sugar. And this is why we have an extremely horrible obesity crisis in this world today, and especially with our children. They're becoming more and more obese. And I've talked about that in another video also. And it's all because of what we're putting in our mouths. And it's also, remember in another video, we also talked about what flour is. Flour is just stored glucose. Just like in the body, in the human body, when we take in glucose, our body clumps that together and it stores in forms called glycogen. But in plants, this stored form of glucose is called starch. So anything that has starch in it, anything that has flour in it, that also is glucose. So that's even more sugar. So that's why you want to stay away from all these processed foods and all these processed breads. The other thing is in all our condiments. So you may think that you have a perfectly healthy salad, and then you go and you put all this salad dressing on top of it. You just added sugar. You just took a good healthy meal and you turned it into a bad meal because of the sugar that's in it. And again, it's in all the fast food restaurants that we go to. So anywhere you go for fast food, if it's not something, again, if it was never alive to begin with, you might not want to be putting that in your mouth. And so basically, anything with a can in it, anything with a label on it, whether it's a box, bag, bottle, or can, if it has a label on it and you're trying to decide whether it's healthy for you or not, chances are it's not. And obviously it's on all the donuts and all our desserts as well. And as you can see on here, there's even baby food. And that's exactly right. They even put high fructose corn syrup in our baby food. And that's why we have an epidemic of obese 6-month-olds today. So these conditions, these disease states that we used to see with patients when they were in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, now we're starting to see it with our patients who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s now because of all the sugar and how early we start our babies in with all the sugar. So we're starting to see all the detrimental effects coming now. And so if you think you can read a label and see how much sugar in it, you might want to think again because there's all kinds of different names for sugar. And because of this, they hide the names all through the labels. So if they could just put it all together and just said sugar, that'd be the very first ingredient on the list. But that's not what they do. They have all these different names for sugar, so it makes it very hard for you to see what's in there. And this is also why whenever I've been reading, listening, or watching studies from all around the world from these other physicians, other nutritionists, and other scientists, anytime they compare their country's nutrition to America, they always call it the sad diet. And I didn't know what they were talking about when they kept talking about the sad diet. And then I realized what they were talking about. When they were saying sad diet, they were calling it the standard American diet. And that's exactly right. This is an extremely sad diet because of all the processed food that we put in our mouths. And it's also extremely sad because of all the countries in the world, America has one of the top medical systems in the entire world. However, when you talk about nutrition in our populations, we also have one of the top of the poorest nutrition of any other country in this entire world. And it's all because of the amount of processed food that we put in our mouths every single day. So if we have any hopes of stopping type 2 diabetes and reversing it, the only way it's going to be is we have to learn how to eat properly, and that means eat God-made food. If it was never alive to begin with, we probably shouldn't be putting that in our mouths, and we definitely need to stop putting all this processed food in our mouths because it's toxic to our bodies with no nutritional value whatsoever. So anyway, that's my talk on this for today. So I hope you enjoyed it, and please come back and see us in some more videos.